was the reason for you to start Sun Microsystems?
Well, I certainly can't take credit for it. There were four 27-year-olds who all started the company together. I had 3 years business experience, which was more than the other three founders combined.
Colt, can you talk a little bit about what is Little Horse? What does it do? And what you made to get started?
I made him sleep outside until he became a believer.
I didn't want to give Dad the satisfaction of knowing that I thought Java was cool, so I resisted it as long as I could.
Scott, how we are able to build such a high-performing team, and how we are able to keep them engaged and run for such a long period? Scott, what would be your advice or tips that you want to share to an aspiring entrepreneur who wants to build a next Sun Microsystems?
Be lucky.
Colt, what is your goal with Little Horse? What do you see as where it should be going, what it should be?
What's my goal with Little Horse? I think there's why am I starting a company, and then there's what I want Little Horse to be.
Hello, friends. I would like to welcome all of you to this November month YCrash webinar series. So this webinar is very, very special for us, right? Today, we have a generational leader who doesn't come that often, who rarely comes. So we have a special generation leader. He has influenced our modern computing direction. Under his leadership, several great technologies like Java, Spark, NFS, so many other wonderful, excellent technologies were created. So it's none other than Scott McNealy. Hello, Scott. Thank you very much for coming to the session. And then there is this saying, right? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Very similarly, Colt McNealy, who is also an entrepreneur by his own record, who is the founder and CEO of Little Horse, which specializes in building the command center for distributed applications like agentic workflows and other applications. So thank you, Colt, for joining. Right?
Thanks for having us.
Right. So Scott, I am a huge fan and admirer of you. Right. So I grew up in India. So it was in mid-90s. At the time, the world was not this much connected. In the mid-90s, it was happening. So I read in a native, it was a small magazine. In the magazine, it is not even in English. It was in my native language. So there I happened to read, at the time, Bill Gates was a stalwart or a big hero.
So he was a pain in the ass back then too, yes.
So, so at the time they were saying, oh, there is this innovator, CEO, Scott McNealy, who is kind of challenging Bill Gates or this Microsoft. So I was very surprised. That is the first time I heard your name. It was in mid-90s. And then I came to US. In 2000, I attended the Java 1 conference. Oh my God, I can still not forget that site. It was that internet boom was happening, the dot-com boom was happening. The entire Moscone Center was flooded with people, right? So it's just a very wonderful experience. It's still surreal for me that I'm sharing this platform with you. Thank you very much, Scott, for coming and attending this session. So, Scott, I want to start off with this question. See, a lot of iconic companies were founded by the people coming from the very deep tech backgrounds, right? I understand you are coming from the management background, right? That was your academic. So what made you, or what was the reason for you to start Sun Microsystems? What sparked you and what got you into this Sun Microsystems? What made it to get started?
Well, I certainly can't take credit for it. There were four 27-year-olds who all started the company together. I had 3 years business experience, which was more than the other three founders combined. And my experience was mostly manufacturing, a little bit of sales in industrial automotive products. I was building tanks in operations, the Bradley fighting vehicle in San Jose when I left to go start work with a little startup called Onyx, which was the first company to put Unix on a microprocessor. And I just did it as based on an introduction from my economics professor from college. And he was trying to buy these computers. They couldn't make them, and he needed an operations guy. So I went over and did that for about 10 months. And then our classmate from business school, Vinod Khosla, who's very well known in his own right, said, let's go start a company. I met this kid on campus named Andy Bechtelsheim, who'd invented this Stanford University network and Sun workstation. And the three of us went off and recruited Bill Joy, the guru of Unix, and the four of us started the company. And it wasn't planned. It just sort of happened. I was single. I didn't care. I was making $2,000 a month. I thought I was living large, and we just all got together, and it was a very, very accidental but wonderful combination of skill sets of all the four founders.
I see. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay. So from there, I want to talk a little bit about Java, right? So Java also seems to be like there is a rumor that Java was intended, you were trying to build a universal remote, but ended up getting Java. Like, what is the story behind how the Java got started? Can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I can't take credit for it. I take credit for letting it happen. But when we were recruiting, we were always looking for the world's best. And I remember in a staff meeting, Bill Joy mentioned that, and I thought Bill Joy was like the greatest programmer ever. And Bill Joy offhandedly said, "Oh yeah, and James Gosling he's on the East Coast at a university or something. He's the world's greatest programmer." And he started to continue his sentence, and I said, "Stop. You know the world's greatest programmer?" I said, "We're going to hire him." He goes, "Oh no, you won't be able to hire him." And I said, "No, we're going to call him right now." We called him on the phone, and we got him to fly out. And sure enough, we got him to join the company, and I was thrilled. And he was doing really great stuff on the enterprise side of Sun, helping us write really good code. But then I heard a rumor you never get told things; you just hear rumors when you're CEO. I heard that James was thinking of leaving the company, so I called him into my office. This was a couple of years after he had joined. And I sat him down and I said, "James, you're thinking of leaving?" "Yeah." He says, "I'm quitting next week." I said, "No, you're not." I go, "Why are you quitting?" He goes, "Well, I want to work on some consumer stuff that will scale beyond tens of thousands of workstations or servers. I want something that will go to hundreds of thousands or millions or even billions of devices. So I want to go do that project." And, obviously we're an enterprise computer company. I said, "Not necessarily." I said, "You're not quitting." I said, "I want you to come to me with a business plan in the next 2 weeks. I will give you however much money you want. You can take whoever you want. You can go wherever you want. You can set up whatever shop. You can call whatever you want, whatever. I'm going to fund you. And the only thing I require is that every year you come and explain to me what you're still doing, how it's going, and what kind of progress you're making." And I said, "So what do you want to go do?" He said, "Well, I want to go start off by building a universal clicker that, back in the old days, we had like 7 or 8 clickers in front of us to do the audio, the video, the networking, everything that you did. You had all these devices." And so I said, "Fine, go do what you want to go do. Come back in 2 weeks, show me the business plan, tell me what you're doing." And so he ran off to go do that. And eventually he ended up creating Java because he said there's no good language or operating system for a clicker. So he invented the Java computer language and the Java virtual machine and the containers and the write once, run anywhere, and all of the other great features of Java. And it really went magic when we met up with Jim Barksdale and Mark Andreessen over at Netscape, who were just launching this thing called the browser. And so we stuck the JVM inside the browser, and literally in a matter of hours, the internet was born. Obviously, you needed TCP/IP, which we had been doing since day one, but all of a sudden that reached combustion in a way that very few things have done. Maybe ChatGPT is something else that has created kind of an internal combustion moment like that. But yeah, that's how it all got started. The only thing that I did was about 4 times during James's journey my COO tried to cancel. The project was called Green and had a couple other names, and he kept taking it out of the budget. And I kept putting it back in, saying, "No, I'm CEO. That we're spending money on that," because he wanted to spend it on, I don't know, parties. I don't know what he wanted to do, but my ability was to keep my contribution was to keep James on board, focused and funded, and left alone by the rest of the company.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Okay. So, Colt, so you have been building this little horse, right?
Mhm.
So initially you were not a believer of JVM, right? And
Sure.
now we now you started building it. So can you talk a little bit about what is little horse, what does it do, and what you made to get started?
I made him sleep outside until he became a believer.
I I didn't want to make give Dad the satisfaction of knowing that I thought Java was cool, so I resisted it as long as I could. But all jokes aside, at Little Horse, as you said, we're building, and we've built a large part of an application command center. So the core insight is, in the modern day, you have applications running across many different services, people, and now talking to external APIs, AI agents, and such. And building a business process on top of all that requires tying so many things together that it's very different from writing code that runs on one laptop. So we give you the ability to write durable code that runs across multiple different systems as if it's running on one system. And that's what we do at Little Horse. It's almost like an operating system, but not quite. So why was I not a fan of the JVM? We'll come back to Little Horse. The core, value prop, as I learned in school about Java, was, well, there's a virtual machine, which means you can write it once, compile it once, and then run it on any hardware. And I was born into Kubernetes. My first job when I was 18, I was working on Kubernetes at a real estate company. And I'm like, well, we have Docker, and Docker can bundle any dependencies that you need. So all you really need is just ship a Docker image. Why do we need jar files? And the second level of virtualization on top of that to be the JVM. And anyways, we're running in the cloud, which is also another level of virtualization because there's virtual machines on top of the hardware anyways, right? So now we have triple virtualization. But at Little Horse, we care a lot about performance and stability. And if we are the infrastructure upon which you orchestrate your processes, it has to be really, really fast. So we've had to do a lot of performance tuning as building any distributed application is really hard. And over that process, I have come to love Java for a couple of reasons. One of them being the hotspot compiler, but more importantly, all of the debugging capabilities of it. So there's in Go or Rust, for example, or C++, you can't really just tell Java to spit out a JFR file that will tell you exactly what percentage of CPU cycles are spent on which class and which method, and what class is hawking up all the memory. So that's why I fell in love with Java, in addition to the fact that the language is very easy to read, especially compared to some other languages that I won't name and besmirch in public.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, it's easy to develop, and also it's easy to maintain, a lot easier to maintain and scale as well. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. So Scott, Sun Microsystem, it's a very surprising thing. There is a lot of wonderful and surprising things about Sun Microsystem. One of them is it attracted so many great engineers and executives, right? They are the ones who are kind of running several major companies, right? Say Satya Nadella was a Microsoft CEO. He was a Sun executive. Eric skimmed it, like he went on to run Google. And there are so many such people. Similarly, we also have like engineers like Bill Joy, James Goslings, and several engineers who defined the whatever we are using today. So how we are able to build such a high performing team, and how we are able to keep them engaged and run for such a long period. And in fact, I truly believe Sun was the company who brought this engineering first culture. So can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I was a golf major, so I needed really bright people. I always had this theory, if I could answer the question, that they brought me, then I didn't hire smart enough people. I wanted my staff meetings to be dealing with nearly unanswerable questions, and everything else they should be able to handle. I was big on delegation, big on um, getting out of people's way, giving them big rules around which they were to operate. To ask is to seek denial. Just go get it done. Speed matters. It's better to have the right answer is the best answer. The wrong answer is second best. No answer is a disaster. And so we tried to drive speed. We tried to delegate down. We tried to give people charters so that they could go run their own little business unit or their own. I really wanted to delegate. I didn't want everything to have to come. Now, if I was Elon Musk or Steve Jobs, I probably would have managed a little. If I had been really smart, I probably would have managed differently. But I'm not smart enough to be able to answer all these questions. I wasn't an engineer. I wasn't. 10 months before we started Sun, I didn't know what a file system was.
Wow.
My job was to make sure I asked the secret question. Hey, what should I be doing that I'm not doing? And I would ask that a dozen times every day with whoever and with whomever I was with. And just, the people who are doing the work are the ones who know what the problems are. And so I wish I had been as smart and visionary as Elon or Steve Jobs or whatever, but I'm not. I wasn't gifted with that. I was gifted with being a great cheerleader, a great arbiter of what's right and wrong, what's ethical and what's not, and what's achievable and what's not. And I tried to keep the company focused. I used to say all the wood behind one arrowhead. Let's not get so defocused. Now, that probably was a bad mistake because certainly if you look at Google, they didn't have as much focus. If you look at Amazon, they didn't focus very well. But we did all right. I wouldn't say I was perfect, but I would say we certainly changed. But we certainly also made it clear that you didn't have to be a manager to make a lot of money. And so we, started a long time ago a thing called the Distinguished Engineer track, where you could make a lot of money just being James Gosling or Bill Joy or Andy Bechtelsheim. And I didn't burden you with having to hire, fire, review, manage, deal with, get the crying towel out for people in management. And they got to spend all their time working on really great technical stuff. We set up a really cool lab called Sun Labs, and it had a rule of 100. Only 100 people were allowed in. You could go in, you could work on a project, small project. If you could get the businesses to want to incorporate you, you went and repotted it there, and then you got to go back to the lab and do it again. We had some very innovative things that came out of the labs because of that model. Large labs don't work. Great projects happen with small numbers of people. And I could talk for a million years about all the little tricks of the trade. But I could also talk a million years about all the mistakes I made too. But I don't want to do that.
Okay.
My son still thinks I'm pretty cool.
No, we all think you are pretty cool. Not only called. Okay.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. So you had a small teams do the innovation, right? Can they work on an indefinite period, or how does it operate? Like, can you talk a little bit about that innovation thing, for giving the full access to engineers and let them do it?
Well, the first thing I did is I didn't try to create competitive teams inside the company.
Okay.
I'd rather put 2x the amount of time on one project. And then I spent time talking to the engineers saying, you know what? There's X thousands of employees here. If you don't deliver, we're going to lay off huge numbers. Maybe the company goes bankrupt. Maybe we, get bought or whatever, and everybody loses their jobs. So I put enormous pressure on them. I said, whatever you need, we're all here to work for you guys, but you guys got to get it done. So I spent a lot of, and there's no other there's no escape valve. There's no back door that we can run out and go, do a different strategy. You are our strategy. You'd better execute. And they like that. They wanted to feel important. They wanted to feel like what they did was going to matter. They also liked our open interfaces, open source strategy, because every engineer wants to be able to tell their kids, hey, listen, I worked on the product that's embedded in that, or the website here, or whatever. They want to see their product get huge usage. Why do a great product that sits in a museum and gets visited and never used? And so by being open and sharing and allowing other people to be part of the system, they all felt they were part of a bigger movement than now. People could have gotten richer. Obviously, proprietary monopolies are better for your wallet, your personal wallet, than monopolies that are open and everybody can share in it. And I just figured we'll all make enough money. Let's move the ball forward and share. So Sun was all about sharing, and that attracted a lot of people. And you see now, people just don't even want to deal with stuff that's not open if they can avoid it at all.
Yeah. So
I would agree. We've had a lot of people coming to our open source because an unnamed competitor of ours is no longer free to use in production.
Yeah. So
why is it unnamed? That's not
okay.
Really.
Camunda 7 to Camunda 8 is a very painful migration, and also Camunda 8 is not available in source available anymore. So there's a lot of Camunda 7 users who decided to jump to Little Horse instead of jumping to Camunda 8.
Yeah, that's my boy.
Okay. So Colt, Little Horse is also an open source technology, right?
Yes, sir.
Open solution. So can you talk about it? What made you to start it with the open source, and what is the rationale?
Why open source? Well, at first it wasn't open. It was just me writing code, and then when I got a team on board, and then we made it kind of good enough that I'm willing to publish it out to the world. Taking code that you've been working on for like 2 years on your own with a small number of people, and then making it open source feels kind of like running down the street without clothes on. Once we had a little bit of confidence in it, we open sourced it in 2023. And the reason for that was because, well, number one, it's kind of a pride thing. I've put so much effort into this. We want more people to use it. And then number two is, my dad says, it's also good for business, because people wouldn't trust proprietary code that hasn't been vetted for bugs by the open source community, vetted for security vulnerabilities, something that they can't download and change a little bit if there's a certain behavior that they need to add. Like we've gotten a couple contributions from users already because they need certain things, and that's great. And the other thing is that if I were a CTO, I wouldn't want to put the core of my digital infrastructure on a proprietary system that I can't. I don't have any recourse if some large company decides to just jack up the price. If MuleSoft decides to jack up the prices and I have the core transactions running through MuleSoft, I'm in big trouble, right? But if Little Horse decided to jack up the prices, they would just start using the open source version. So that it handcuffs us a little bit, but it also broadens our reach by allowing us to, by allowing CTOs or CIOs to adopt our technology without as much of a risk. And we've, I think almost all of our customers have come by people using open source and then deciding that they needed support.
Okay. So, Colt, why one should use Little Horse?
Why should we use Little Horse?
Yes.
Okay, I was waiting for that question.
Yes.
You should use Little Horse if you struggle with building processes that span across many different systems. And if these processes are flaky, they have downtime, they take a long time to add new features, you're struggling to get value out of AI because you have models that do great things, but you can't put them into your business workflows. If your software engineers are struggling to do that, Little Horse can help, right? I would say, something like Redis is for if you need caching. Kafka is if you need message streaming and events, right? And Little Horse is if you need to easily compose many disparate systems into a business process or into a workflow that aligns with the business. That's what Little Horse does.
I see. Okay, good. Thank you. So, Scott, you were talking about a little bit early about that autonomy, right? Giving a full autonomy and full control to engineers so that they can run the show. So, can you talk a little bit more, go deep, a little bit more deeper into that? What do you mean by that? What you did? What did you do to empower? And some great things that came out of it.
Yeah. So Tobias asked, why did you keep Green in the budget and what was the plan behind it? Well, you do inspection. I inspected him once a year, but I had total faith in him. And if you have faith in somebody, you let him run and don't bother him. And you just tell him, save the world on our behalf, and you trust them. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know. It's just it's hard. You just kind of do what you do. And the next question I got was any surprising answers to what should I be doing question. Um, I tried to I tried to outwork everybody. Um, I wish I could have been Larry Ellison, have boats and beautiful girls and travel the world and yachts and mansions and all the rest of it. But I just said I'm going to get to work before everybody and go home after everybody, and just travel the world, talking to customers and working really, really hard. And then by asking all of these people all around the world, they all had the right answers because they're on the ground. Some of them were unachievable, and I would tell everybody, I have three things. I have a pen, I have a phone, and I have email. Those are or a conference room. Those are the things that I have. Now, what do you want me to do? They would say, well, make this happen. Well, how do I do that? And I'd have to, make them peel that onion back a little bit because they would just think I had some sort of magic wand that could just change things. But, they would say, well, just give them more money. All right, well, where do I take the money from? And you'd have those conversations. And that helped everybody think through the business processes a little bit more. Just, you got to be the great communicator in chief. I said things over and over and over again
Okay.
because there's another thing that we did, and we built very flat organization. We tried to anyhow. I called it rule of 11. You should have 11 people reporting to you at least. And if you only have 3 or 4, then you can't have any managers reporting to you because I don't want a vertical. So if you have more than 9, anybody out there listening, if you have more than 9% managers in your company, you're too vertical and not horizontal. Flatten it. And don't say, well, I can't have so-and-so reporting to somebody because they're not a content expert. Well, listen, I didn't know anything about computers, but I had 11 people who were doing things around computers reporting to me, even though I didn't know anything about computers. It's either you're a manager or you're a contributor, and you got to decide what you want to be. And managing is satisfying. Inventing and doing things, closing the books is fun. Hitting the boot button and have something boot up and work, that's fun. Booking an order, that's fun. Managing is satisfying, it's not fun. And you got to decide what you want to go be. And I would make people choose that and then not try to be both. There's just, I don't know, there's so many different things about how you go through to make things work and happen in an organized way. I was probably one of the better managers, but I wasn't one of the great visionaries. And so I left the vision to the people with higher IQ than me.
Okay. Okay. I see. Okay. So, Colt, as this generation entrepreneur, what do you look for when you're hiring someone? What are some capabilities or skills or any specific things that you look?
Well, this size company, one thing is you're going to spend a lot of time with that person, either on Zoom or in person. So it has to be someone that you enjoy spending time with and that you trust as a person, to be a good person and to be someone that you can enjoy spending a lot of. As my dad says, you have to work a lot, especially in the early days of the company. So it has to be someone that you enjoy in that context and that you're proud to be with as just a human being. And then beyond that, someone who's willing to work hard and someone who's really high IQ. Because we've hired some people who are maybe not that experienced, didn't know that much before, but we put them on various problems. One in particular has done a little bit of sales for us, a little bit of developer advocacy and marketing, a little bit of engineering and some solutions engineering. And well, there's two people in this and had no experience with any of that before, straight out of college. And we're able to pick all of it up, right? And then I've also hired some more experienced people in their 30s or 40s who kind of percolated up to a managerial role in another company, but they were afraid to roll up their sleeves and weren't able to really learn new things as fast. So we have a very, very strong preference for people who are energetic, willing to learn, and willing to work really hard, and it has nothing to do with age. I think the person who fits that bill the most is one of the oldest people in the company and also one of the youngest people in the company. So it's just basically someone I like as a person, someone who works really hard, and someone who learns really, really fast.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. So, Colt, can you talk a little bit about some of the technical challenges, especially around anything with performance and troubleshooting in little odds? And how did you go about solving it? Can you talk about those things?
Well, I got a lot of books back here. Most of them are about distributed systems and databases and such. It turns out that it's hard, a lot harder than I thought it was. And I could talk about there's a lot of stuff with Roxy. That's not Java, that's C++. But separately, there have been a lot of problems inside the JVM itself. We've had deadlocks in our code. We've had deadlocks in Kafka code. We've had memory leaks by caching caches that just weren't ever cleared in our stuff and in other places. And I'm thinking to myself, how would we possibly have figured this out if it was C++ or if it was some other language that didn't have all of the cool capabilities that Java has? So for example, we found a couple bugs in Kafka streams, and the way we found them was we'd run Little Horse at massive scale with a lot of load for a long time, and we'd point JFR at it, get a JFR file out, and then look and figure out what the culprit was. And we were able to debug a lot of things like that. So we are very, very thankful that we chose Java for that reason, because I think that tooling is just so much better in Java than in any other language. I mean, if I was listening to Twitter, we would have written Little Horse and Rust. Actually, but back when we started it, Go was the hot stuff. But yes. If a new Twitter developer were to start Little Horse, they probably would be using Rust. And I think that would be a mistake.
I see. Okay. So have you tried YCrash?
Have I? Well, no, I found out about it recently, and it seems like I like exactly what we need, because it took us a while to kind of figure out the problems. But as I understand it, you guys can take GC logs, you can take the output of top, you can take the JFR files, you can take thread dumps, and give proactive recommendations to tuning and fixing problems. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. See, whenever there is a performance problem happens or any production problem happens, it could happen because of various reasons. It could happen because of network contention. It can happen because of lack of storage, or JVM can have any deadlock, or there could be a thread leaks, memory leaks. It could be several things could be going on. So what does YCrash does is the YCrash, it captures a 360-degree data from your application stack. Starting from it captures application log, artifacts from JVM like a garbage collection log, thread dumps, heap dump, and the operating system logs, the container, the Kubernetes. It captures all of them. It analyzes all of this data and gets you to the root cause. What made your application to slow down? What made it to crash, right? So that's what we do from a very high level. Okay. So coming back to Scott. So Scott, what would be your advice or tips that you want to share to an aspiring entrepreneur who wants to build a next Sun Microsystems?
Be lucky.
Okay.
find really three really smart co-founders. You know, I just got up in the morning, worked as hard as I could till I was exhausted, had dinner, and then went to bed. And you could see my clothes walking down the hall towards the bed at night because I would start taking clothes off, and by the time I got ready to the bedroom, I was under the covers and asleep, and then the alarm would go off in the morning. You just got to be willing to just work harder, try harder, and you try to be more honest than the next person. Now, that doesn't always mean you're going to be the biggest, but I, you want to be able to sleep at night. I mean, I don't know how some of these people do what they do and why they do what they do, but you got to decide what's your goal here. Is your goal to move mankind forward? Is your goal to move capitalism and private enterprise forward? Is your goal to have the most money? Is that your benchmark? Is it to make your investors money? There are lots of different things you can uh, be after, but you also have to ask yourself, am I lucky enough or am I smart enough or am I both to really do this? And should I just go to work for Elon or should I try to be Elon? And I don't want to talk anybody out of being Elon, but um, Elon and Steve Jobs and Dave Duffield, who started Workday and PeopleSoft and Ridgeline. Those are the really, really special people that have been able to start multiple companies and multiple initiatives, and they're very, very rare. But then there's guys like uh, James Goodnight, who started SaaS software, and he has a completely clean cap table. He used nobody else's money to fund it, and he's built a wonderful company. He still writes code. I don't know how old he is, and he's built villages for his people to live in, and has golf courses and workout facilities, and he just takes really, really good care of his people. And most people don't know who he is. He doesn't. He's probably smarter than me. He doesn't do these kinds of things and get out there, and he just kind of plugs along and does really great stuff, and has hired a bunch of people. I consider the best payoff for me has been people who came up to me and said, I bought a house, I put my kid through school, I got to take my family on a vacation, to Hawaii or whatever. And just to see how excited, or hey, our product is being used by my brother and his company, or they get so excited about different aspects of the private enterprise experience, and that's what gets me going, is the private enterprise. I don't want government doing anything. I, I'm a huge libertarian that way. Government is a monopoly, and monopolies by definition are corrupt, not innovative, high priced, and did I mention corrupt? Private enterprise is our only chance at moving humanity forward and .orgs have turned out to be just disasters everywhere. So the way to move humanity forward, where everybody has high self-esteem, feels good about themselves, wants to work hard. I mean, people want to work hard in a well-run private enterprise. Nobody works hard in government. Nobody. So, I think it's a very, very high calling to want to go start a company. Even if you fail, you're trying, and you might sneak through the net and make it, and get airborne. That's worth trying, and try again and again, or find somebody who has got a better vision than you and go make them successful. I always thought I'd be the clear number two for whatever company I work for, because I saw my dad be CEO, and he worked too hard, and I thought, I'm never going to work that hard. I'm not going to go do that, but I got caught up in it. And I started off as number two. I made Vinod be CEO, but he left after 2 years. They asked me to take over temporarily. And I said, I went and had dinner with my mom, and I said, I don't really want to do this. She said, I'll do it for a year. So I said, all right. And I gave him my resignation letter the day I took the job. And I said, you can fire me anytime you want. And it's just, I think often the people who don't want to do the job they actually respect the job more than the people who want to do the job and don't understand it. And I didn't want to do it because I knew how hard it was. But once I got the job and I did it, and people seemed to respond to me, I thought, well, maybe I can do it for another year, and then another year, and another year, and then I did it until my four boys were 2, 4, 6, and 8 at home, and I said to the board, I've done this, I've done my part. I have another job to do, and that is to make sure my boys are raised well and don't have an absentee father. So I made a very, very tough decision at that point to stop. But as the boys will tell you, I'm totally flunking retirement because I'm chairman emeritus of Little Horse and I'm having a blast. How many times we talk a day? Maybe 10, 12 times a day. I'm operating partner at Flume Ventures with former Sun exec. I'm in Incline Village, and we're making lots of great investments in some very, very exciting companies, and I'm enjoying that. I obviously am the biggest fan of my first son and my last son, who are a PGA Tour player and caddy combo. And then I've got a second son who's also on the technology bent, and he runs the Ford factory to car network. So I've got to follow those four. I'm going to be a grandfather probably within the next 48 hours for the first time. So I got that going for me. I'm advising probably 20 or 30 companies or more just on I don't I just put my hand out and say I advise for stock options. And even if you don't want to give me stock options, I give advice. I don't know what else to do other than help people do capitalism and private enterprise. I think that's the greatest calling I have without going into the seminary. So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, okay. Very glad to hear. Okay, so Colt, what is your goal with Little Horse? What do you see as where it should be going, what it should be?
What's my goal with Little Horse? I think there's why am I starting a company, and then there's what I want Little Horse to be. So why I'm starting at a company is because I want to be, maybe 1/10 the man my dad was, and I think part of that would be if I could have a company and then do some good with the world, that would be great. He's my role model, and I look up to him, and I want to be like him. Now, for Little Horse, if I were to ask you, hey, Ram, what do you think of when you think of caching? You're probably going to say Redis, right? And what do you think of when you think of cloud storage? S3 maybe, S3. Right? When you think of a database, Oracle, Postgres, right? And what I want people to say is, if I were to go down, to some tech conference and ask someone in the hallway, hey, what do you think of when you think about orchestrating distributed processes? I want them to say Little Horse. And right now, you'll say orchestrating distributed processes. You're like, well, what do you mean? What is that? So it's a new category that hasn't really, we have this pain and we just accept it as part of a life, and no one has cemented themselves as the leader in that category. So that's what I want Little Horse to be.
Okay. Yeah, very good.
So one of the ways I like to describe this, because I'm an old guy and I've seen, we had microservices that were a mess. It was called the motherboard, and every chip was a different microservice, and we invented operating systems to manage that.
Yeah.
And so Solaris and Windows, whatever. But then we put all these boards in racks, and we needed to manage and virtualize and handle that. So how did we handle that? Well, we created things like VMware and the whole virtualization world. But then we put all these racks in different data centers, and we needed to manage all these data center racks as microservices. And so we created Kubernetes, and that kind of virtualized and managed and handled all that. Now we've got all of these microservices, legacy apps like Oracle and MRP and all of the other stuff. And you have humans in the loop, and you have now all these AI assets. And they're all running on top, on the cloud, in heterogeneous environments. Who's going to manage all of that? Well, he sort of built the enterprise OS for managing humans, AI assets, legacy apps, new microservices. And so he's very much, he reminds me so much of Andy Bechtolsheim, Bill Joy, and James Gosling in terms of his ability to go from the language all the way through to the operating system to the actual implementations of the customers. And it takes a special dedication to think at all of those different levels. I asked Andy, this is kind of always interesting. I said, Andy, why are you such a good hardware designer? And, Andy arguably is the greatest enterprise engineer ever, and more emails and bits and electrons and stuff have gone through his equipment than anybody else on the planet. I would argue. And he said, well, and he wasn't bragging. He's so matter of fact. He's such a wonderful gentleman. He just said, well, a lot of people can put 3 or 4 variables into their brain at one time and do a simultaneous equation solution for 3 or 4 variables. He said, but I have the ability, if I really think hard and kind of add in more and more, and it takes me several hours to keep adding in variables, say for a board design or an architectural decision. He said, I can get up to like 10 or 11 or 12, and I could juggle 10 or 11 or 12 variables in a simultaneous equation at one time and solve for them. He said, but the real problem is I got to make sure nobody walks in, because as soon as somebody walks in the door and starts talking to me, it all falls out of my brain and I got to go back and reconstruct it. And I thought, whoa, yeah, you're smarter than me. I can't do 12. I can't even think about doing 12, but that's what makes it special. And I would brag and say that Colt has the ability to focus and manage far more variables when he solves his simultaneous equation than the average smart engineer. And that's why he looked at this problem and said it's got to be solved. And I think I know how to do it. So Bill Joy was that way too.
Okay, I see. So, Colt, that is a big words, big compliments for you.
I don't know if I can
Very
live up to
good.
that, but
Very happy to hear.
daddy goggles, perhaps. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. So, Scott, Colt, is there anything you want to share right now? Anything you want to say to the team before we take
Well,
any questions?
I give us a check out our code on GitHub or go to our website, but better yet, go to GitHub and leave us a star, join our Slack community and chat. And we'd be happy to help you get started and write some code with Little Horse and start automating some processes. And hopefully we'll be optimizing and making our code faster using YCrash very, very shortly. It's a really, really cool product.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Colt. So, Scott, before we open up the questions, one last question for you. See, you have inspired our generation of engineers and entrepreneurs. How would you like to be remembered in the future? How would you like to be remembered?
I don't need to be remembered except by my family. But I would like to be remembered as somebody who didn't cheat, as somebody who did it the right way, who didn't. We shared, we took care of our customers, we took care of our employees. We tried to do well by our investors. We did well by our investors. We didn't do, NVIDIA kind of well by our customers, but we're not ashamed of what we did. All of what NVIDIA is doing, all of what Facebook is doing, all of what Google and all the rest of them are doing was built on the TCP/IP, Unix, Java, Genie, NFS world that we built, as distributed computing world that we did invent at Sun. We had help along the way from people like Netscape and others. But just want to be remembered as somebody who put in an honest day's work every day and a heavy emphasis on honest. And I think I don't know, maybe I'm getting old and crusty, but I think, for instance, here in America and with all of the other large governments, honesty, transparency, ethics are sadly lacking. And there's so much corruption and lying that is going on with our governments that I think, and there's a bunch of private sector oligarchs who are not very impressive and who are trying to grow their oligarchy instead of funding and supporting a chance for everybody to work hard. Don't give anybody anything. Nothing's more demeaning than giving somebody something they didn't earn. Nothing will ruin their self-esteem more than giving them something. Give them a job. Make them earn, and you will have a very happy person that can go to bed at night feeling good about making a difference. And I think that's what all of us leaders need to be thinking about and driving and pushing and investing in, not seeing if I can make my AI bigger than your AI. And that whole AI thing is another big fun story, but that's for a later date.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Scott. It was really eye-opening and very touching.
What are you laughing about, Colt?
And just the lack of filter in front of 75 people about to be recorded.
Whatever.
Yeah, okay. So
you'll get that way. On your genes are the filters wear off in your genes.
Yeah, I have less filter now than I did 5 years ago. I will say that.
Okay. Okay. So there are a lot of questions are here. Let me just ask a few of them, right? Okay. So Jason Chapman is asking, in this fourth industrial generation, and with all the doom and gloom grabbing headlines about all the jobs going away, what is the advice of a seasoned veteran to help people transition into a new landscape and contribute? Scott?
Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of jobs that should be automated away. But if you look at where hiring is going to happen, security, from security guard through network security analyst and everything in between, I call it mall cop, the security guard in the mall, all the way up through the best computer scientists. There's lots of jobs in making people feel safe and secure. That's an important aspect of productivity in life. Healthcare. We're living longer and there's more issues, and we've got medicines making people sick. So, we got a lot of work from, nurses, from, I'm going to become a grandfather here in the next 48 hours, hopefully. And, there's people delivering babies all the way through to senior health care and, assisted living and everything in between, and all of the different efforts to try and make people live healthier lives. That's an enormous amount of stuff to happen. We're still going to need people who create food. I'm a cattle farmer now. I have 700 cattle. I mean, you need to make food, and that will always be manual to some level. And I don't think there's so much that can be done. I'll tell you what, we could employ most of America just going out and cleaning up the place. You drive on any freeway for more than an hour, and you will see more junk on the side of the road. Just abandoned stuff, abandoned cars. Our RVs go out to die along the side of the highway. We can make the place pretty again, and you should feel good about that. If you like to garden, you should also like to go with a big dump truck and throw garbage in it and put it into a landfill and get it off. There's so many ways we can. I'd like to get it to the point where we can get the smartest people back in school, elementary schools, teaching our kids. I mean, we used to have the smartest women in the world teaching our kids. Now they're off trying to do dumb things and be a VP at some company that isn't going to really make a difference, like fixing a bunch of kids. I'd like to see the smartest people making babies. And in fact, they're not. It's not, it's not we gotta have the smartest people having babies. And, I think it's good Elon has 14 kids. The gene pool there is strong in that fella. So that's a good thing. Larry Ellison's doing his his I only had four, so maybe that's good because I'm not as smart as those guys. But I think there's lots of things that can be done uh, with manual labor and allow people to have maybe a little more um, leisure time. But the problem is right now with government spending and inflation, all the rest of it, it takes two people to rent a place and have food and have some minimal entertainment life. They can't afford kids. There's something very broken in our systems, and whether it's Doge or what, somebody needs to get in there and figure it out and make it so that somebody can go out and make money and the others can raise kids and have a family. There's nothing more satisfying than putting in a good hard day's work and then being able to share it and spend time with a family. I mean, that's the human condition, and why we think that isn't is beyond me.
Okay.
If I might take it back to the original question, I think if you're worried about the job market constantly changing, well, it's been changing for 30 years, and I think the answer is you have to constantly upskill. A couple of those books I read 3 years ago don't really matter anymore now, but they did matter 3 years ago. And there's a lot of other things that you have to constantly learn to stay relevant in the job market. Would you say that 20% skills obsolescence every year? So in 5
Yeah, I did. That was that was in the Sun days, and I would tell people that if you don't reskill yourself in 5 years, you're completely obsolete. But I think the number is 25 or 30% now, skills obsolescence per year. So within 3 years, whatever you learn. I mean, for all of us, think about what you learned in college. It doesn't matter. It's what did you learn in the last 3 years that matters to whether or not somebody wants to employ you or whether you have some contribution to make to the world. So,
Okay. So, Scott, there is another question from Srinivas Srirangan. He says, Scott, you famously declared you have no privacy, get over it, back in 1999.
I was right.
Yeah, yes. Uh, so now with AI systems increasingly trained on vast amount of personal data, do you see the shift from data privacy to data ownership?
Yeah, and I've been working with a company that's been trying to do that for a long time. It's called Drumwave, and Andre Veloso is the CEO, and they have data wallet architecture so that you can own and release your data and sell your data if you want it to release, as opposed to having Google or Facebook or any of ChatGPT or any of those other people using your data. And I think data ownership is incredibly uh, correct, the correct thing to do, because and the ones that you have no privacy, get over it if you're a citizen. But if you're a government, you have total privacy. You can redact things. You can smash cell phones when they've been subpoenaed. You can do things in a skiff. You can operate. I mean, they still haven't released the unredacted JFK files from the JFK assassination. Only a government can do that. There's no private sector or private individual who could ever be that private. So it's all upside down right now. The government has absolute privacy, and the poor citizen, the serf, has no privacy. And we've got to turn that back around, or we will always be ruled by our rulers, and we will always be serfs.
Okay, got it. Okay, we will wrap. There are more questions, but we'll wrap up
On that positive note. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So there are more questions, but we'll wrap up with this as the last question. So this is for both Scott and Colt, right? So what is McNealy's dinner table conversations will look like? Will there be any?
Take this and make it a little bit more wild, and yeah, that's about it. A little bit less tech at dinner, I think.
Okay.
The four boys are really balancing. They have a very strong bro code, but they also keep each other in check and call each other out very, very well. We try not to use the word like for instance, I'll tell you a while back during high school, everybody was saying, like, I'm all like, like I'm, like all, like, and he was like, all, and it got so cumbersome. So we played the like game. Anytime anybody at the dinner table used the word like inappropriately, people would go, eh. And if you notice, Colt doesn't use that vernacular, and you sound a little more intelligent because of it. But that's the kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of, norm shaping inside the company, as well as a lot of good arguments and education of what's going on in everybody's life. It's really, it's fun getting the six of us plus extended family together. It's always a fun and raucous and interesting and enlightening dinner conversation. And I think more people need to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Very true. Okay. So, Scott, we wish you advance congratulations for becoming a grandfather, called to become an uncle, right? So we totally enjoyed this conversation. It was very valuable, very insightful. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Colt.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening. Go Little Horse.
Thanks, Rob.
Yes, go little
Appreciate it.
horse. Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.